Don't throw out those rotisserie chicken bones. Instead, save them because you can use them in a deeply nourishing, collagen-rich bone broth. I'm Taylor from Metropolitan Market, and today I'll be showing you everything that you need to know in order to make home-cooked bone broth. This is what finished bone broth looks like. Bone broth, you might see it has some like chunkier bits in there, and a lot of people think that that is a sign that they went wrong somewhere, but you actually do want that in your bone broth because that's a sign that your broth is rich with collagen and all of those nutritional benefits that we're looking for when we make home-cooked bone broth. Let's chat about all the ingredients that I have in front of me here. You're gonna start with 2 rotisserie chicken carcasses. And I love rotisserie chicken. When I go to the grocery store, it is 100% of the time something that I'm throwing in my cart. It's just a great meal prep convenience item. And then I always keep my bones, and I actually store them in the freezer until I'm ready to make a bone broth. We have 2 carcasses from rotisserie chickens, and then we have celery, carrots, white onions, bay leaves, salt, and garlic. But kind of the beauty of bone broth is you can just go into your fridge and use any sort of leftover produce that you have and any sort of herbs and ingredients that you have on hand. These are just the things that I like to use. The carrot, celery, onion trio, it's called mirepoix. It's like a classic French blend that creates this really sweet, savory, aromatic backbone for our broth. And I think that it's a really strong foundation for building a very versatile broth that you can use for a lot of different meals. So first things first, we already washed our veggies, so we're gonna prep them for our broth. So I'm gonna start by just peeling the carrots. And I actually will save my carrot peels and I'll freeze those as well. So then if I don't have veggies on hand, I can just use the scraps in my broth. But the best sort of savory broth recommendation that I can make is like using a whole different variety of vegetables. So carrots, they add a lot of like richness and sweetness to our broth. And so they act as a really lovely, deeper note, I would say. So we'll be using 3 carrots for this recipe. And I love carrots just because they're loaded with vitamins and they just up the nutritional value of the bone broth that we're making. So next up, we're gonna be chopping our celery, and we're gonna be using 4 stalks for this recipe. And celery adds this aromatic depth to our broth, and it adds a little bit of bitterness that balances out the richness of the broth. It kind of cuts through the thickness really nicely. So next we're gonna be adding 2 onions to our broth. So onions are super pungent, and so they add a ton of really lovely flavor to our broth. And I'm just doing a bit of a rougher dice here. You don't have to be like too precise or precious with this. You can see I just kind of like threw some little bits off of the board here. But that's sort of like the lovely thing about making a broth is like it doesn't have to necessarily look aesthetically pleasing. We're just going for flavor. So the last produce element for our broth is garlic, and I love garlic. I will literally throw it in everything. It just adds like this lovely earthy warmth to any sort of dish. And when we're using it in broth, we actually don't have to like get really fussy with it and go through the whole like peeling every single individual clove and mincing it up really finely. All you have to do is chop off the head of the garlic here and expose all of the cloves. And since we're simmering it for a really long time, all of that garlic flavor is just gonna infuse really beautifully into our broth. So before we add water to our pot, we're gonna put all of our ingredients in first so that we're not getting splashed as we're adding everything to our pot. I like to keep my seasonings really simple with bone broth. All I'm gonna be doing is adding a couple bay leaves in there. They add more of like an herbaceous note. We'll be adding salt as well. And with bone broth, good rule of thumb is to undersalt your broth because you can always add more whenever you're actually cooking with your broth. So now it's time for the main event, our bones. So with rotisserie chicken, you're not gonna get all of the meat bits off, and that's okay. We actually want that because those meat bits are gonna make our broth even more tasty, and all of those like collagen-filled skin bits are actually gonna make our broth even more nutritious as well. Next, we're gonna add our water, and we're just adding enough to cover all of our ingredients rather than filling it to the top of the pot. The traditional way to make bone broth is to do it on the stove top, but if you're pressed for time or you have plans on the weekend and you can't stay home all day and tend to your stove top, you can also do this in a slow cooker or even in an instant pot as well for a truly set it and forget it hands-off approach. So now it's time to put our broth on the stove, and we're gonna bring everything to a boil before reducing it to a simmer for the rest of the cooking process. And if you're just looking for a flavorful stock, you can stop at the 2-hour mark. But if you want more of those rich nutritional benefits infused in your broth, then you're gonna let it go for 6 to 12 hours. Now that our broth is done, it's time to strain it. So I like to use just a mesh produce bag with a canning funnel, and I just throw that on top of a mason jar that I'll be storing my broth in. And what I do is I use a pair of tongs, and I just take the big bits of bones out first. I'll let it drip like that, so then we're catching all of the drippings and we're not losing any of that liquid gold. So once your bone broth is all strained, you can put it in an airtight jar, or you can put it in silicone molds like this that can go into the freezer, and that's kind of nice because it's just pre-portioned and ready to go for whatever you want to cook using it. So they can keep in the fridge for up to 5 days or in the freezer for up to 6 months. Let us know what you think of this recipe down in the comments below, and we hope that you give it a go.